wake up in the woods with a lump on your head. You can't remember how you got there. All you can recall are the dreams. It's late, cold, and you are unsure of where you are exactly. Fighting through the headache, you regain your focus. You see a house in a clearing and decide to shelter there. Anything is better than freezing to death in the woods. Welcome to this commentary for the Exmortis Trilogy. I will be covering all 3 games from start to finish, and reading all notes and journals along the way. Exmortis 1 requires you to collect 3 books and 5 symbols. Failure to do so in the correct order can sometimes lead to the game being glitched, so I urge you to follow this guide to make sure it doesn't happen. Head on to the 2nd floor and take a right on the 2nd level hallway. There is thumping coming from the ceiling. Pull the hatch down and go upstairs into the attic. A torso hung up by the arms has been ripped to shreds. You retch at the mere sight. A symbol, our first, is written in blood on the floor, and on the wall there is a piece of paper, 3489. There is no breeze in here, so why is this roof lamp swinging, and how the hell did so much blood get on the roof? The bed is soaked in it, and the gramophone is unplugged but it's still rotating. How is this possible? Click on the painting to find a safe behind it. The code we have just found, 3489. It appears to be a human heart. A strange symbol is smeared in blood on the safe wall. Our 2nd symbol, a dark leather book called Exmortis, lies here. What was? Before the dawn of man and beast, the earth realm was ruled by the ancients, mystical beings transcending life, death, time and reality as most mere mortals know it. The days before life and light were ruled by darkness and chaos. The ancients roamed the plane of existence and lived on the blood of conquest and rule over lesser entities. There were many of these ruling archaic spirits. However, one by one over many millennia, their greed and arrogance saw them turn against each other. They sought blood, destruction, and dominance over their own kind, and many immortal sentients met their demise as a result. The consolidation of the remaining power saw the ancients' rule divided amongst the remaining 3. Azrael, Kfafta, and Vley frequently exerted their wrath and cruelty through their ferocity towards each other's dominion. The blood of many was spilt as the remaining 3 fought against his brother for the spoils and power that each possessed. Upon the battlefield, Azrael's forces reduced the armies of Vley's to dust, culminating in long-awaited glorious victory. But his compassion towards his defeated brother saw Vley get a reprieve from the certain destruction that he faced. Knowing that defeating Kfafta's forces would require millennia of fighting, Azrael appointed Vley as his general, knowing that the power of 2 ancients was enough to win undisputed control. In a final bloody battle in the crimson sky, the penultimate confrontation played out. Kfafta, not realizing that Vley was still corporeal and leading Azrael's armies, made the grave mistake of underestimating the strength of his opponent. The losses took the Kfafta forces by surprise, and before they had time to regroup, Vley had plunged his sword deep into the heart of his defences. Azrael's forces streamed into the last stronghold of Kfafta, slaying every sentient entity that stood amongst them. Kfafta's armies were eventually defeated, leaving Vley triumphant in his victory. His subordinates fought ferociously, and they were to be rewarded with a unified rule over the Earth Realm. Azrael, holding no compassion towards Kfafta as he had Vley, destroyed the life force of his nemesis and claimed the kingdom as his own. With his totalitarian control, he decided that Vley was no longer of use to him. Unfortunate for him, he did not count on his army siding with the powerful Vley. In a furious realization of this challenge in the face of certain ascension, the Earth Realm shook with the power of Azrael's anger towards his army's treachery. Vley showed no mercy towards his brother, knowing that he could not make the same mistake that Azrael made. Without hesitation, Vley had Azrael slain by his own ethereal hand, and he assumed total control of the consolidated kingdom of the Earth Realm. The tyrannical rule of Vley lasted for millennia, with no one to challenge him, but conspire certain forces did against the sole remaining ancient. They bode their time, recruiting supporters of their overthrowing. Vley was ambushed and overpowered by his trusted advisors, but knowing that only one of his own kind could destroy him, he had his corporeal presence removed to exist for eternity in the demonic spirit form. The remaining world of archaic lessers were dispersed and were governed under each individual's rule. It was true chaos, with no joint agenda. Vley, without corporeal form and no longer able to physically alter the world, roamed the Earth Realm for the rest of existence. Diminished in power, he still had many followers to which he would spiritually combine his life force with. Instead of existing as a single powerful entity, Vley becoming subversively indestructible by being many. He called his new legion of existence Exmortis. What is? The appearance of soul-bearing creatures of flesh and blood saw in new rule within the Earth Realm. Over many thousands of years, man destroyed countless lesser entities, some very powerful, even some who helped overthrow Vley's previous rule. While man was physically weak in comparison to the entities of dark times, their souls gave them many advantages that the Earth Realm entities were reduced to minimal numbers. A world once ruled with strength and might was now in the hands of the weak. The handful of ancient entities sought to influence and control humanity for mutual gain. Vley's Exmortis prospered where other entities failed purely because of their strength in numbers and the wisdom of the mighty ancient himself. Together as one, the Exmortis was worshipped widely in the world of man, but human nature led to conflict, and the cult of Vley was tragically culled and almost forgotten. With every passing human year, Vley's influence and power in the Earth Realm was diminished, until all that remained was what was recorded in the written from. After the death of the final disciple, Vley and the Exmortis slept until the day humanity was ready for the anointment of his hand. What will be? Prophecy and the word of Vley speaks of the coming of the hand of repose. Anointed with the blood of 5, a selected man will transcend humanity and evolve to become the link between the Earth Realm and Vley's Exmortis. Awakening the ancient from his slumber, the hand will be charged with the power to bring about the uprising of the cult of Exmortis once again. Blood, wrath and strength will once again rule the Earth Realm, and Vley will walk tall and rule amongst the mortals, as it was meant to be in the time before light and life. Rite of charging the hand. Translated from the Aramic cult of Exmortis scrolls, the rite of charging the hands reads as follows: devoured the crimson life of 5, marks of Vley given to thee, mirrored below the sole survivor, what was, what is, and what will be. The bathtub is filled with what seems to be blood. The window is boarded up, maybe by someone who valued their privacy. and in the bloodied sink there was a small iron key. A hallway, shrouded in the shadows, leads off into darkness. It has to be some kind of hallucination. There's another painting on the wall. Another hallucination? A grandfather clock sits ticking away in the corner. You use the key to open the door. There is something very unnerving about this sculpture. The word remember is smeared in blood on this mirror. A severed arm. This house is turning out to be a graveyard. Something has been written in blood. The third symbol. And in the bookshelf there is a book here that doesn't quite fit. Tale of My Daughter Gwen is a sad and sorrowful fable. I refer to it as a fable for my mortal brain cannot begin to comprehend the horrors that I have witnessed in this house. So I cast what I have witnessed into my memory as delusion and morbid fantasy. My small family moved to this house of solitude last summer to escape the perils of society and to mourn the unfortunate death of my wife Julia. Tuberculosis claimed her life months before my move to this place. Hindsight is a beautiful thing, and knowing what I know now, it was a move that I would never again make. The days rolled onwards towards inevitability, and my daughter and I continued our simple existence. Being a scholar myself, I enjoyed passing the time reading the literature left here by the previous owner of this detached house. Many of the fine works kept here proved to be very old and of extreme interest to me. Some works proved very challenging and very hard to translate. The library provided here had an abundance of books flavoured on the occult. One particular book caught my interest, simply titled Ex Mortis. The word is a derivative of ex mortis, which loosely translates to the dead. It was from the moment that I finished translating this book, from an unusual dialect of ancient Aramic, mind you, and read the final English translation that our troubles here began. My daughter, the only other occupant of this house, grew distant from me over the course of the following week. She developed rageful tendencies towards my parentage, and she started having seizures, which worried me immensely at the time. But these unusual events didn't limit themselves to my daughter. I began having nightmares so ghastly that I dare not recall them. Suffice to say, I was concerned by the disturbing changes to both my daughter and I. After the first week, the hallucinations began. I recall hearing noises and whispering, as well as sighting movement in my peripheral vision. I constantly had the feeling that someone was in the room with me, but upon searching it was clear that I was alone. My dear Gwen, however, became less active all of a sudden. She was almost catatonic at stages, not reacting to conversation or physical prompting. She would just shuffle her petite form around the house and stare blankly through me whenever I confronted her. It was shortly after a month of this behaviour that I began to notice certain physical changes in my daughter. She seemed withered in her appearance, but her face would at times seem bloated and twisted horribly. It wasn't until a fleeting moment in my day that my hope was crushed forever. My darling Gwen broke free from this new personality that had gripped her for months. She screamed and cried for me to help her, to save her from the monsters that now plagued her body. All that I could do was hold her in my arms and assure her that I would free her from the prison she was trapped in. And then she was lost forever. The Gwen that I loved had resurfaced for only a minute, but to me, it was enough to realise what had to be done. That night, while she slept in her room, I crept in with dagger in hand and plunged it deep into her heart. She writhed and convulsed in agony, while all I could do was just watch and sob from the corner. In her dying breath, the real Gwen locked eyes with me and spoke. "Thank you, Daddy." I sit here now recounting the events that led me to this point in my insanity. My wife and daughter were taken from me over the past 6 months, leaving me with nothing but their memories and this home. But I fear that now I am a target for the invisible force that resides within these walls. I am trapped, unable to venture past the front door or the cellar hatch to the surrounding forest. I hear voices from all around me cursing me for my actions. I occasionally see her, my Gwen, standing in the hallway, looking straight through me like she used to. I hope that I have saved her soul, but after seeing her apparition on a daily basis, I fear all I have done is aided my tormentors. I now spend my days reading, researching, and translating the library. I feel that it's my purpose in this house. May God have mercy on my soul, and may death soon relieve me of the guilt I carry. A severed head. It appears to be a fresh kill. Wherever the killer is, he will probably be back soon, and I don't want to be here when he returns. It looks like a symbol has been smeared onto his forehead. The 4th symbol. And a knife sits on the shelf. It is too small to be armed with a weapon. We should look for something larger. A tattered diary sits on the table. May 24th, 1997. An unusually eventful day today. I stumbled across an unusual find whilst out hunting for deer in this remote wilderness. Stalking a wild steed into a clearing, you can only imagine my surprise to find a house, old and seemingly abandoned, but still standing strong. An interesting find, one that certainly has me curious. May 25th, 1997. Upon my investigation with the city archives earlier this morning, it appears that the house has been abandoned for almost 10 years and currently resides under the control of the local government. I feel that its location must be too remote for them to tear it down, but I must admit that I feel drawn back to the house, mostly out of curiosity, but I cannot deny that there is something else about that place that has me yearning to return. May 28th, 1997. I could not put it off any longer. I called in sick to the office today and decided that I would retrace my steps into the wilderness to once again find the house which has been foremost on my mind as of late. It didn't take much to find it again, as it was almost like I was being guided back to the exact spot that I found myself some 4 days ago. Once I plucked up enough courage, I pushed open the unlocked front door. Admittedly, I was very surprised at the ease of which the door opened, considering that the hinge had probably built up a good 10 years worth of rust. To my relative astonishment, the place was still furnished, though very dirty and completely run down. I was and still am amazed at the state of the place, considering it had been abandoned for so long. I decided that I would explore the house and not disturb anything within. My fear had not subsided, and as a matter of fact, it is still with me as I record the journal some hours later. My curiosity took me through the kitchen, bedroom, and lounge room before a thumping noise from the roof on the 2nd level startled me so much that I ran straight out the front door and back through the forest to my automobile. As it was, I almost fell off a small ledge and into the thicket below. I felt like a complete fool being scared off by rats, which I assumed they were. May 29th, 1997. I had a nightmare last night. All I can remember is the blood and the frightened screams surrounding me, and the house. The house was in my nightmare too. May 30th, 1997. I called in sick to work once again so that I could venture out to the wilderness and explore the abandoned house once more. Not surprisingly, I found the structure with relative ease as I did yesterday. However, I was startled when I noticed that the front door was closed. I am certain that when I left in such a hurry that the door had been left ajar. In any case, I eventually attributed the closed door to the wind, as I was clearly the only person who had been in that old house recently. I repeatedly scoured through the house for anything interesting, heading back through the previously visited rooms. Once again, as I passed through the hallways outside the main bedroom on the second floor, I heard heavy thumping coming from the roof. I was instantly very tempted to repeat yesterday's dash from the house, but I swallowed my fear and continued on with the exploration. In the limited time that I had before dusk, I did not uncover anything that would help explain the mysterious disappearance of the most recent tenants. May 31st, 1997. I sit here in the lounge room of the old house by candlelight, recording in this journal the events that have transpired today. Although I am scared to within an inch of my life, I am bound to this, and feel that I do not have the strength or resolve to run back to my car at such an advanced hour. As I have for the past week, I returned to this house with the intent of uncovering anything that could help answer the question of its missing tenant. I failed to uncover anything that could help the cause, but what I did find seems far more precious and disturbing than I could have ever hoped for. As I was scouring the library for any misplaced photos or letters, I almost tripped over myself, a leather-bound book on the dusty floor. I was certainly miffed as to how I had missed it in my movements through this house over the past few days. Picking up the book, I felt a slight empowerment rush through me. The distant sound of wind began to sound like whispers, and the room in which I was standing seemed to darken. I wondered what knowledge the scribe had passed down the ages for me. Enchanted by this aging literature, I retreated back into the lounge room, settled down in one of the most comfortable chairs, and read through the contents of this book. Written in what appeared to be red ink of some sort, a lot of the content didn't initially make sense, as the majority of it is written in a language that is foreign to me. But in the back of the book there were abridged translations written by a Mr. Xavier Rehayem from 1890. The majority of what I could understand seemed rather jumbled and nonsensical. Rather disappointed, I closed the book and relieved myself of its burden. Things from this point became rather blurred and frighteningly surreal. The sound of distant forest animals stopped, as if all life paused waiting for my next move. The wind outside stopped pounding against the shuttered windows, and the candle winked out of existence, leaving me in almost pitch-black conditions. I listened closely, and all I could hear over my heartbeat and rasping breath was the whispering that I shrugged off before. It was coming from every direction, yet no direction at all. The whispering slowly got louder, until it sounded like a dull roar. Voices of many different types called out. They cried in pain, screamed my name, and some shouted obscenities I dare not repeat. There were so many of them, so many voices. I felt multiple hands pin me down to the chair by my upper torso, but every time I flailed my arms out in front of me, they connected with nothing but air. The harder I was pressed against the chair, the harder it was for me to breathe, and soon I could not breathe at all. I blacked out. The last thing that I remember was a flash of my nightmare from the night before. A flash of the blood, a flash of the screams, the house. I woke up about 20 minutes ago, slumped in the same chair. It is now long after dark, and I dare not brave the sub-zero temperatures of the woodland winter to return home this evening. Tonight I'll be staying in this accursed house. I sometimes think that I can still hear the whispering, or are they echoes of my earlier brush with madness? I can feel the urge of slumber rush towards me like a freight train. I pray that I survive the night. June 1st, 1997. Plagued by nightmares more vivid than I cared to remember, I woke up screaming. It appears that I slept through the daylight hours, but it didn't matter to me. I was incensed to fight the freezing conditions and return home, but I was scared to move from this spot. They started whispering to me again. I want to leave, but I can't. They won't let me. They just laugh and utter obscenities back at me. What have I released upon this world? June 3rd, 1997. Velay spoke to me today. It is he who is spoken of in the Exmortis. With every word he whispers into my mind, I tremble as if my soul has been shaken to its core. June 7th, 1997. I've been here for over a week now. Surely someone must be looking for me by now. I pray that they find me. My captors here won't let me leave. Every day, every exit, the handles turn, but the door does not move on its hinges. June 16th, 1997. I no longer fear death. I actually pray that it comes for me. June 30th, 1997. They still torment me, keeping me here, keeping me alive. They lead me to... I can't even write about it. July 20th, 1997. I feel my sanity has left me. I hallucinate so vividly, I can't tell what's real and what's not anymore. The Ancient shows me images of his former glory. I don't understand why they want me, why they need me. July 26th, 1997. I am actually surprised. I am told that they seek not to control me. They only seek my assistance in aiding the inevitable. But why do I continue to resist? What they tell me makes more sense than anything I have ever known. But I still fear them, and what they will do to me should I refuse. But at this moment I can't think of a single reason why I should. August 13th, 1997. Is acceptance all that I have ever yearned for? But the greater good here is far more complicated, so much easier to obtain. They smile upon me now. Strangely, though, I like it. I find myself basking in the warmth of their chilling promises. August 22nd, 1997. I am comfortable, and I am learning about the true nature of the world and what lies beyond it. I don't know why I continue writing in this journal. I guess that it's the last semblance of humanity that I have within me. It's ridiculous, though. I am becoming more than human with every moment that I spend under their patient tutelage. I have been tempted to throw this journal into the fire on many occasions. Reading over its pages only reminds me of how weak I used to be. I've lost track of the day, but I am sure that I have been here for well over a year. It has been a long time since I have entered anything in this journal. I can rejoice, though. We will have company at last. I will finally be rewarded. A group approacheth to provide me with the everlasting cup of life. A day away, no more, no less, I am told. Wrath, death, blood. My day has finally arrived. The Exmortis shall make the world remember what was, and I will be integral in reinstating what will be. I can see them now. A group of campers as I was promised. 3 males and 2 females. And now all I can do is wait. Wait for my time. Become their hand. Immortality beyond patience. Patience beyond the dominion. I can taste it now. Anoint me, Lord Velay. The time has come. blood of Rehayem stains the sheets. It was over 100 years ago that she was murdered, so how can it still be fresh? The door slams shut behind you. An axe leans up against the wall. You pick it up. The gap is now big enough for you to squeeze through it. An old tunnel system stretches off into darkness. A symbol appears on the forehead, and that must mean this is the fifth sacrifice. If I'm not one of the 5 campers, then who am I? I can't be... No. As you continue into the tunnel, you'll find a small key and begin to piece everything together. The lump on the back of your head, you tried to escape from the demons once, and you could try again, run into the forest, but it would be inevitable. They won't let you escape. They won't let you leave until you complete what they need of you and become the Hand of Exmortis.
Welcome back, child. You have served us well up until this point. Now serve us again. Become the Hand of Exmortis.
Devour the crimson life of 5, marks of vow given to thee. Mirrored below the cells of life, what was, what is, and what will be.
The hordes of Exmortis swept across the earth, a plague unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. In their final stand, a handful of mankind's last survivors stood their ground, defiant of their inevitable fate. And in those last moments, as death took these brave souls, a stranger passing in the distance put his plans in motion. Where is your god now? The barren wasteland stretches in most directions as far as the eye can see. Sometimes I wonder if there's anything left fighting for. The sky has been stained blood red since the Exmortis started systematically eradicating the world. The mountain range overshadows the plain. And this abandoned church was to be the Resistance rendezvous point after the final stand against the Exmortis. On the wall someone has written, "Where is your god now?" This door leads inside. I only hope what's beyond its darkness, I will find some answers. Each pew is covered in a thick layer of dust. Holy shit! Maybe nothing living left in here, but I am definitely not alone. It isn't of the Exmortis though. I would be dead by now if it was.
Mr. Hannay. Please sit, for my time here is limited. I take it the battle didn't go as planned. An unfortunate inevitability, I'm afraid. Nevertheless, it has aided and allowed me the passage I required to make contact with you. The Exmortis know you're here, so I must be brief. All might seem lost to you in this dark hour, however, I am here to bring you hope when you have none. I have here with me a parchment which you will do well to read carefully. The knowledge within its pages will shed light on your path towards removing the scourge and allowing mortal man to begin rebuilding. I don't doubt that you are wondering if I am trustworthy or not. However, at this point, neither you nor the remaining fragments of humanity have anything left to forfeit. I'm afraid mankind's fate rests on your next course of action. For your sake, I hope you make the right choice.
Prophecy of the Hand. One night, I dreamed. A darkness once dormant, patiently waiting, was now emerging from the shadows. A light growing brighter from beyond a dark chasm, wrapping around a pillar stained with ancient symbols. Many millions of shrieks and screams engulfed me where I stood, until I felt the burn rise up from the floor, and it too consumed me. My soul, ripped from my shell, was flattened and became a pathway. It became a link between the ancient world and my reality. Unspeakable monstrosities crossed over and began devouring every living thing. And then a fiend of unspeakable size and malevolence looked at me and smiled as he crossed into my world. He introduced himself as the Ancient of the Exmortis, Valet. I could see myself, a tattered, broken man, suddenly imbued with an insatiable power. I felt a sudden drive to destroy all that I knew and return it all to how it used to be before light and life. I saw myself become the Hand of Exmortis. I saw what was, what is, and what will be. I then saw a strange dagger plunge deep into me, a man holding it, a mere mortal, and something else in the shadows. But then the darkness took me as I fell to my knees and the pathway crumbled, my soul lost forever. I don't dare to dream again, for fear of what other horrors await. Property of Lockyer Fields Ranch. As you exit out the back, you can see the clouds approaching on the horizon. The Exmortis know you're here and they are coming. The car looks rusted, but the tracks indicate it's still able to drive. You spy a key in between the cracks, and grabbing off a wire from the top of the car, use it to fish the key out and quickly start the engine. Xavier's legacy. This is the Lockyer Fields Ranch the doctrine from the church led me to. But what possible significance could this place hold in the grand scheme of things? I have a feeling I won't have to wait long to find out. This picture frame fell off the wall when the door slammed shut behind me, and although the place seems to be in disrepair, there really isn't much dust here. This place seems to have been recently occupied. Clearly there is some kind of entity in this house that doesn't agree with my presence here. Nevertheless, the door seems to have jammed shut. The sheets on the bed are soaked with the blood of this poor woman, and A large splatter of gore seems to have hit the wall. There is a massive hole in her chest. The bedside table has a small drawer here. All it contains is a Bible, and below it, a tattered diary. January 28th. Well, I got digging around the dusty old cellar today, and I came across a whole heap of old leather-bound books with each and every page blank. So I thought to myself that I might as well put one of them to good use. I guess I got myself a new diary to use. It is quite remarkable how good the condition the books are in, considering how old they look. It continually surprises me the amount of handy items I find in this place. I know this place has been under the care of my relatives for over 100 years, but you would think that in that time, someone would have taken the time to go through all the old crap from the previous occupants of this place. In any case, the unpacking process is almost complete. It seems a little weird that my wife, kids and I are now living in old Uncle Charlie's ranch. It's been years since I've last set foot in this place before he passed on. Charlie and I never really got on so well, so it was certainly a surprise to find out that he left his place to me in his will. I wonder what he meant by only you can understand the ranch, and if you can't at first, you will learn to. Certainly seems like a last cryptic jab at me from beyond the grave. Anna is settling in okay. I had to do a hell of a lot of talking her around into moving away from the city. She wasn't going to go without a fight. But I think she's finally happy that she broke away from her dead-end job and is kind of looking forward to the simpler life out here in the sticks. The kids are always keen for a change, so it didn't take much coercion to make them see this as a fresh new start. I think the thought of having horses, cows and chickens to look after made them forget that they will be rooming together for the first few weeks until I can get the rooms at the end of the hallway emptied out, cleaned and converted to top quality living quarters. Well, I've got a lot of work ahead of me in the next few months, but I feel good. This was a good choice, a welcome change. I just hope Anna relaxes into her new home. 30th January. I got a fair amount of work done today. I finally finished the fencing around the southern field, but the oddest thing happened as I was finishing up. I had a strange compulsion to look back at the house, and I could have sworn I saw someone watching me from behind the window in the room at the end of the hall. Anna and the kids were out running some errands, so that is why I make note of this as being odd. I just put it down as my eyes playing tricks on me. A full day of hard work under the hot sun can play tricks with your mind. Anna still seems a little standoffish about the move. She is not 100% convinced that we are making the right move here. I told her to give it some time and that it will grow on her. Still, her stressful attitude is rubbing off on me. I snapped at Zoe today, which is very unlike me. She ran off to her room crying, and I went up to apologize and explain that Daddy is a bit stressed with the move. She really didn't warrant my anger, and I felt bad about it for a while. Smiles after our little talk. The 6-year-old's mind is an enigma to me sometimes. 3rd February. It's been a strange few days. We had an old picture of a man and a girl hanging up near the front door. I don't know who they are or what purpose Uncle Charlie had with such an old portrait in the house lobby, but I felt it was time for something a little more modern. I took down the portrait and mounted the family photo we had taken this past Christmas. I threw that old portrait in the cellar with all the other old junk. I need to sort through and turn in for the night. I got up in the morning to walk to the kitchen and found that old portrait hanging up in the exact same spot which I had removed it from, but no sign of the family photo I had replaced it with. I did a bit of searching around the place without any luck, so I asked Anna and the kids about it, and they claimed they knew nothing about it. But what really angered me out was that when I went down into the cellar, I found the frame all smashed up on the floor. I immediately brought it to everyone's attention, but still no one admitted to the deed. I must admit that I flew off the handle a bit, and once again, Zoe and Daniel both ran sobbing to their rooms again. Such disregard for my authority in my house will not be tolerated. I shouted at them as their little legs bolted up the stairs. Claire just sat in the living room, glued to the damn idiot box TV. Kids. I replaced the frame for the Christmas photo and remounted it on the wall in the lobby, once again discarding the old portrait to the cellar. But this time I had locked the damn door and strung the key around my neck for safekeeping. It's the darndest thing. The next morning I got up to find the old portrait back on the wall, and once again the Christmas photo was back in the cellar all smashed up. How is that possible? There are no extra keys cut for that door, and there sure as heck ain't a skeleton key for this place that I know of. I don't have any remaining spare frames, so I guess the old portrait stays where it is for now. I swear, sometimes I think I'm losing my mind. 12th of February. The local sheriff dropped by today, asking questions about if we had seen anything unusual, and if we had seen any suspicious-looking people out of character for the area. I told him we hadn't. When I asked him what was wrong, he let slip that in a neighbouring settlement, a whole bunch of people were found dead. Ripped to shreds by some frenzied assailants, were his exact words. Ah, fuck. I moved my family out here to get away from that kind of shit. 14th of February. I found a clipping in the local paper about the murders in San Remi. 28 people dead. That's virtually the whole town. And demons from hell? What the fuck? They're either smoking some good crack over there, or the local God-fearing community has an overactive imagination. I finally got the energy and time to clear out the old desk and books from the room at the end of the hall, but I just couldn't get the door to budge open. The handle would turn, but no matter how hard I pushed at it, it just wouldn't work. I got tired of fighting a losing battle, so I put off the clean out of the room until later. I did manage to get the other room cleaned out and kitted up with Claire's bed and furniture, so she'll be spending the night in her own room for the first time in this house tonight. Daniel and Zoe are still sharing the same bed, but hell, at 6 and 8 years old, it's not like there's not going to be enough room on the same mattress for them. And another for first in this house. Anna and I made love this morning. I think she's finally coming around about the move, although I do think that the murders in San Remi have left her shaken a little. Too close to home, I think. And the thought of men, women and children being mutilated like that chills me to the bone. People can be fucking animals sometimes. 15th of February. I woke up last night with a fright. Standing over Anna and I in our bedroom was Claire. She said that she couldn't sleep, that a man kept sitting on the end of her bed looking out the window. I told her that she was just dreaming. Damn it, she's 11 years old, and she should be able to differentiate between fantasy and reality by now. I walked her back to bed, tucked her in and sang her to sleep. I was half asleep at the time, but I could have sworn that the stuck door at the end of the wall was open just a crack on the way to Claire's room. It didn't occur to me at the time to check on it again. All I wanted to do was to go back to bed. 18th of February. More murders. Local news broadcasts mentioned that more people were mysteriously killed. Now a town further away has been hit and virtually wiped out just as San Remi had. What is going on in this world for shit like this to happen? Out here in all places. I didn't mention anything to Anna about the new lot of murders. There's no use in making her any jitterier than she is already. Besides, she's now finally relaxed a little, and we are getting some semblance of normality back into our sex lives. If anything, she's become a little more energetic and enthusiastic than she has ever been when it comes to that. Claire is still having problems sleeping. She keeps talking of a man sitting on her bed and looking out back through her window. Anna and I are taking turns at babying her back to sleep each night. Anna is sure that with time she'll get used to her room and it won't be an issue for much longer. I certainly hope she's right. I could do with an uninterrupted sleep for the first time in a while, especially with the amount of work I'm doing during the day around the ranch. I need as much sleep as I can get to save my energy for dealing with the damn horses. They seem very spooked of late, a pattern of stubbornness that I can do without. 23rd of February. The sunset was amazing today. It was the most beautiful pinkish red sky that I have ever seen. Anna and I sat on the front doorstep and toasted it with a couple glasses of Chardonnay. Simply stunning. 24th of February. That damn door just won't move. I've tried oiling it, removing the latching, chiseling the frame, and even kicking the fucking thing down. I'm getting over it very quickly. I'm this close to scaling the outside wall to break a window to climb in. Claire has taken a turn for the worse. Even though she is not complaining about her mysterious man on the bed, she is basically shut down. The most conversation that I can get out of her is an occasional grunt, and she spends most of the day sitting in front of the television when she is not in school. She always looks so tired and unwell. If this continues for much longer, I'm going to have to take her to see a doctor. 26th of February. New hunter. 500 dead. This is very concerning. These murders are not slowing up. If anything, they are increasing at an exponential rate. Police have no further information other than the assailants possibly being some sort of satanic cult. It all sounds rather vague to me. I know it's selfish of me, but the only positive thing to come from this is that the spree of murders seem to be moving away from us here, but I know that doesn't make us safe. I cut the clipping out of the newspaper and put it with the other I had from the original San Raimi killings. I don't know why I have this morbid fascination with these recent events. Maybe it's because it's so close to home. Something else that I have noticed of recently is that the daytime sky isn't as blue as it used to be. Almost purple in appearance at times. The sunsets of late are amazing though, but I am starting to miss the familiar blue hue of the daytime sky. 2nd of March. I spoke to Claire today and got a semi-coherent response from her. It's the first sustainable conversation that I've had with her in quite a while. Anna noticed that her bed seemed quite undisturbed last night, almost as if she didn't sleep in it. Anna convinced me to buy a gun today. I am definitely not a gun person, which seems odd considering that I am running a virtual farm here, but for the protection of my family against these marauding killers, it seemed the only sane thing to do. I've heard numerous rumours about the killings that have been happening. People eviscerated and ripped limb from limb in their own house, out on the street, in the backyards, wherever they happened to be when attacked. I even heard that the attack that left Palo Alto completely depopulated had the town literally painted in blood. I cannot even begin to imagine how this could happen, and I'm even more surprised at the apparent complete lack of federal government response. No one can go within 10 miles of New Hunter without getting turned away by local law enforcement, so there is definitely some sort of investigation happening. 5th of March. I woke up very early this morning because I thought I heard a noise coming from the end of the hall. I picked up the gun and cautiously stalked from room to room, checking on everyone. Daniel and Zoe were fast asleep, but imagine my surprise when I got to Claire's room. She wasn't asleep in her bed. In fact, she was wide awake, sitting on the corner of her bed, just looking out of the window to the back field. I approached her and put my hand on her head, which was soaked with an ice-cold sweat. She jumped and startled with my presence and let out a shrill, high-pitched scream unlike anything I had ever heard before. All she could do was cowl away from me against the wall and scream as loud as a banshee. The commotion woke everyone up, and soon I had Anna sprinting to my side in a phased and frightened state. It took about 15 minutes to snap Claire out of whatever episode she had been having and return to her normal state. There was a startling moment when I could have sworn that I saw a reflection in the glass of the window of someone moving behind me in the shadows. There just isn't something right about that room. We hustled Claire into Daniel and Zoe's room, where she spent the rest of the morning sleeping. Anna and I both decided that we would move Claire's belongings out of that room and let her sleep with the siblings indefinitely. It would be tight and stuffy for them, but Claire seemed more happy to hear the news of the move. 11th of March. The news has just come in. Los Angeles and San Francisco are under siege from these marauding killers. I am speechless as I write this. Everyone has been huddled around the TV downstairs for hours, watching report after report of the events. It is being reported that there are thousands of people dead in just a space of a few hours. Anna has been trying to call her family in LA with no success. All lines of communication in the city seem to be down. I pray to God that they are okay. Information on their well-being is scarce, so all we have to go on at the moment is what we have seen on TV. The broadcasts are apparently under restrictions as to the content they could show due to the graphic nature of the images and the government stepping in and blocking certain footage. But the descriptions of some of these creatures is more than frightening. They are not human, we are being told. I went down to the local mall and brought a corkboard, which I have set up in Claire's old bedroom. I've started clipping articles and pinning them up there. I still remain morbidly fascinated by these events. More frightened than fascinated, I suppose, but to know thy enemy is the first step to defeating thy enemy. Well, that's what I've been saying to Anna to justify my new hobby. 12th of March. LA is a graveyard, and San Francisco isn't much better off at the moment. Millions of lives lost. The president made a statement today, but it was all rhetoric about defending our way of life and making sure justice would be served. Just another way of saying that they are as scared and clueless on a course of action as we are. The military has been engaging these creatures for most of the day. From reports I've seen, we aren't faring so well. The casualty rate is ridiculously high, but all military press conferences I've seen have been of a positive nature. Hopefully this isn't the war propaganda machine turning. Anna received word that her brother Joe got out alive, but it doesn't look good for the rest of her family. Her parents were smack bang in the middle of LA, so even if they managed to start the exodus of the city, these creatures would have been on them in no time. This is insane. Am I dreaming? 16th March. We nuked them. I can't fucking believe it. We actually dropped a nuke on them, on our own soil over residential land in the upper Pacific coast, after only 1 day of engaging the enemy. It's too early to know if it was effective, but the realization of how completely worst case scenario that this must be for this sort of action to be taken, well, it just boggles the mind. Anna's brother Joe is driving here. He's going to stay with us for a while. I'm going to set him up in Claire's old room. Hopefully he won't suffer the same adverse effects that she bore from that strange feeling room. But at this stage, considering what is happening, that room is the least of our worries. 17th of March. Well, we've just been advised that a nuke has not stemmed the flow of violence. In fact, I think the words that were used were completely ineffectual. We're being told that these things, which are being referred to as Exmortis, have virtually wiped out most of our towns, villages, and cities along the Pacific coast, and are heading north up into Canada and back east to our other coast. We have been lucky in that these killings started off in this area somewhere. People have been saying that Exmortis numbers when they initially hit San Remi were minute compared to the millions they now consist of. We were spared, but it won't be long before we see them coming back this way again. Oh Lord, please let us find a way of stopping these things before it comes to that. Joe arrived today. All he had was the clothes on his back and the car he came in. The stories he had to tell us were just dreadful. Even he only just managed to escape the maelstrom. Apparently he got a frantic, garbled phone call from his and Anna's father telling him to get out of the city immediately with no questions asked. He did exactly that, but he never heard from his parents again. All he could say was that his father sounded more scared than he ever had. He could hear his mother sobbing and praying in the background all through the call. Joe must have choked out the words through the tears at least 12 times. At least they were together in the end. Anna has taken this all remarkably well. She was shuffling around the cellar this morning and emerged with an old Bible. She's never really been a big religious nut, but when I caught her sneaking it into the bedside table drawer, she told me that having it close makes her feel better. I love her so much. 18th of March. Something has Joe scared more than he was when he arrived. He won't talk about it, but he's adamant that he doesn't want to sleep in Claire's old room again. I have noticed that he's sporting some pretty vicious bruises on his face, arms and ribs which weren't there yesterday. When I asked him about them, he'd either change the subject, ignore the line of questioning, or just pretend he didn't hear and go off on tangents. We've relocated him to the living room as a temporary arrangement for now. 28th of March. It's official. Washington has fallen, and Air Force One failed to make it off the tarmac before it was set upon. What hope is there left for us? Our military is all but wiped out. Everything we've thrown at them has failed, and now reports of Japan and China are coming under siege. The mood here in the house is quite melancholy. It's almost like we've given up any hope of avoiding the apparent, inevitable fate set before us. We've been told at the current rate of advancement, and if the Exmortis follow an assumed course sweeping down the east coast and then back across west, we only have another 3 weeks, tops. Where are these things coming from? How did they grow in such mammoth numbers in such a short time? But the $1 million what the fuck questions are, who are they and why are they doing this? I'm afraid we won't live long enough to find the answers. 31st of March. New York has fallen. Millions upon millions more dead. The front on the east coast seems to be following the expected pattern at the moment, heading south down the coast while spreading the umbrella further west every day. I try to continue collecting as many news articles as possible. Press productions are particularly hard to come by at the moment, but we have a steady trickle of information coming in, even if nearly all avenues of delivering it are stemmed. TV is down to only a couple of local channels. Suffice to say, the word programming doesn't exist anymore. It's just a constant barrage of news and images of the rampages across the world. 14th of April. I still keep track of what's happening in other countries as much as possible, but as I have mentioned previously, information is getting much harder to come by as more and more countries are overrun. I've heard that we have earned some sort of a reprieve here. Apparently a major majority of the Exmortis have broken off and are headed south to swarm over the southern American countries. As much as that takes some of the pressure off us here, there is still a smaller surge of creatures doubling back this way, probably to finish off the smaller communities. We remain on high alert, staying within close proximity to each other at all times. Anna is the last remaining optimist among us. I would have lost my mind a few weeks ago if it wasn't for her positive influence. With every day that passes, they get closer, and I can feel my sanity slipping just a bit more. 18th of April. Electricity went out today. At least we had the forethought to stock up on batteries for a few essential items like flashlights. 23rd of April. Anna spent most of today clearing out a lot of the junk from the cellar to try and make it into a makeshift bomb shelter. A few creatures have been spotted in dashing across the open country only 50 miles from here, so while we are now in harm's way, the Exmortis must have been spread pretty thin in our locality. Anna is of the opinion that if they aren't in such great numbers around here, we might stand a chance if we hole up in the cellar. I am not so sure myself, but it is definitely a better option than just standing out in the open waiting to be slaughtered. Most of the local properties have purchased portable CB radios and air horns to alert neighbours of incursions. 29th of April. People are getting jittier by the day, it seems. There was a false alarm today at the Jacksons' house. As soon as we heard the air horn, we frantically rounded up the kids and huddled into the cellar, only to hear Bob's sheepish apology radioed across the CB. Dog. It was just a dog. I haven't laughed that hard in ages. In fact, I haven't laughed at all in ages. Poor old Bob Jackson was probably getting an earful from his wife. I'd hate to have been in his shoes today. 12th of May. The Colbys are dead. They didn't even have time to get to their shelter. After a few hours of waiting anxiously in our cellar after the alarm, we broke radio silence to check on everyone's welfare. The Colbys were the only ones that didn't answer. Joe, Bob and I geared up and drove up to the Colbys' house, and nothing could have prepared me for what we saw. Greg, Karen and his kids were just torn to shreds. Karen's torso was strung up from the tree out back, and her legs were just a mutilated mess at the foot of the stump. We found bits of Greg scattered around his back porch, and the kids, oh God, the kids, the suffering they would have been subjected to. I am dry retching as I write this. No one deserves to go through that. Is this what we can expect? Will my own children, my own flesh and blood, end up the same way as the Colbys did? What kind of fate is that? Seeing this level of inhumanity firsthand has affected me more than anyone will ever know. 23rd of May. Since the Colbys, things have been pretty quiet. Our provisions have started to get fairly scarce these last few days. I don't know how much longer we are going to be able to hold out for. 28th of March. As much as I hated doing it for so many reasons, Joe and I had to return to the Colby house to raid their supplies. We managed to scavenge enough provisions to keep us going for another few weeks at least, but beyond that, I am unsure what we will do. 9th of June. It's been almost a month since the last alarm was sounded, but Joe claims to have heard some rather worrying news. This could all be hearsay, but he was told that this is purely the calm before the storm. Joe was told that further inland, a rather large horde of creatures has been slowly heading westwards. Over the past few nights, I have noticed a distant build-up of strange clouds hanging on to the edge of the horizon. I fear that we don't have much time left. 13th of June. Nowhere to run and hide this time. The clouds on the eastern horizon have been getting larger since my last entry. The build-up of creatures around that direction must have been massive. The distant sound of thunder now permanently hangs in the air. I don't think hiding in the cellar is going to work this time around. The Exmortis are in a final sweep, and I don't think they will leave any stone unturned. No time left. No hope. I can't stop thinking about the Colby family. Their faces twisted in painful screams as they were ripped to shreds. To make matters worse, our food supplies have just run out. Joe has offered to make a mad overnight dash to the old town centre to raid some of the shops. I told him it was pointless. At the rate those clouds are approaching, they will be on us before he can get back in time. Food means nothing if you're not alive to enjoy it. But he went anyway. Joe, you fool. You will never get back in time. The scuffed up door on the left has a particular pungent odour seeping out from the crack. Children. No matter how many times I bear witness to such inhumanities, I just can't get used to it. The Exmortis must have swept through here recently. A Zippo lighter rests on the floor. There's another door at the far end. The blood of the little girl stains the wall and floor here. She didn't even see it coming. I can still feel her melancholy presence in the room. Mass murder. Ghastly accounts of the murders of 28 people in San Remi last night came flooding into local authorities as it was revealed that the attackers were of unknown identity or origin. Little is known at this point in time. However, the gruesome nature of the murders has led police to make no official statement. Eric Barber, 23, was a witness to one of the numerous eviscerations in San Remi. It was a demon from hell that just jumped out of the shadows and tore into that poor man. He was gutted like a fish. I barely made it out alive. San Remi was a township of just 30 people. However, after last night's events, it will surely become a ghost town. 500 killed as township of New Hunter burns. Surrounding rural communities of New Hunter are in shock today, as it was revealed that an estimated 500 people were gruesomely killed by marauding assailants. Local enforcement authorities are adamant that the recent spate of murders is not on the increase, and that the investigation into similar killings on surrounding towns is making valuable ground on a daily basis. Police have issued a statement claiming that all evidence points to a satanic cult. Eyewitness accounts have led police to further claim that men disguised in extremely lifelike Halloween costumes have been perpetrating these insidious murders. From all further accounts, these murders appear to not be gender or race specific, and there is no clear patterns or common method of execution. At this point, local authorities are being tight-lipped about the specific details of these murders. The families of the victims will be notified upon the seemingly mammoth job of identifying the bodies which were left strewn about the streets and houses of New Hunter. Residents in surrounding townships are asked to stay indoors after dark and are urged to not panic. The cities of Los Angeles and San Francisco fell victim overnight to the recent human massacre phenomenon that has swept across rural towns in the past fortnight. There is an estimated body count of close to 300,000 people in both major cities as of last night. Washington is yet to respond to yet another massacre, as once again citizens are left without answers as to the origin of the assailants that seem to be perpetrating this hideous murder spree. LA and San Francisco police are working frantically to combat the marauding menace in an attempt to prevent further metropolitan casualties. The deployment overnight of 1,500 officers and 100 federal agents has so far failed to halt the onslaught. Police sources indicate that they have suffered almost a 75% casualty rate thus far. Exmortis. The mere mention of the name of these self-appointed executioners of humanity is enough to send a shiver down anyone's spine. There isn't a soul left amongst us that has an answer to this plague of genocide. Our police and army has crumbled and was put to death like lambs to the slaughter. Our families and loved ones have all been butchered. Our land, trees and animals wilt and die under this new red sky. We are all familiar with the images of our major cities in ruin, gutted by this horde of demons and supernatural entities, whilst other countries looked on in shock and horror, yet confident in their own isolation from this cruel fate. But now reports of similar extinctions in China, Russia, and many European countries. This isn't the destruction of America. This is the extinction of mankind. This is Judgment Day. (11 p.m. Sunday), the words the Catholic and Christian communities of the world had never dreamed possible were echoed over the airwaves of every remaining radio station. Vatican City was in ruins. The Pope and his clergy were all dead. The last bastion of hope and religious faith that mankind had held up until this point drifted away with the clouds of the storm the Exmortis rode in on. In the days leading up to this devastation, the familiar images of the sky turning red as a precursor to the scourge's arrival became obvious. Rome and the Vatican prepared themselves as best as they could. Millions of Rome's locals flocked to the Vatican gates in the hope that the holiest landmark on earth would be the safest place from what they believed were the minions of Satan. At about 9 p.m. on Sunday, the clouds fell upon Rome, and it only took an hour before many millions of people were left slaughtered or trampled in the ensuing chaos. Even so, soon after news of the Vatican falling, Reports worldwide of mass suicides in the remaining untouched areas of Europe, Australasia and Africa began flooding in. Mass denunciation of religion has begun. A world once so dominated by people of unwavering faith in their deities is now virtually stripped of any religion. Churches and other places of worship have been attacked and burned to the ground in London, Paris, Sydney and Hong Kong. People caught praying are set upon by angry mobs, intent on displaying their anger at being cheated for so long. The world has surely become a darker place. Police sources overnight have revealed the identity of the group responsible for the mass murders across the central western and west coast states. Over the past month, the group identified as the Exmortis has been laying waste to every settlement, town and city in its path. Scenes of unimaginable violence and carnage have dominated television sets across the world. Early reports of this threat as being a satanic cult have since been dismissed after the more recent graphic images were leaked from the information-controlled archives within the federal government. The many thousands of assailants depicted in the new footage has led analysts to believe that the Exmortis is not of human origin. Inhuman speed, strength and ferocity have led us to believe that these are creatures of unknown species and origin, not human or any animal that we know of. Government spokesman Micheal has confirmed the rumour and speculation over the nature of the Exmortis. We have evidence to support the recent notions that the horde we refer to as the Exmortis are indeed not of human origin. With the limited scientific analysis we were able to perform on a captured sentient, we have determined that the creature is in fact not of any species that we are at all familiar with. Further analysis is currently being undertaken. However, thus far we have made some startling observations of their behaviour patterns and capabilities. The creatures tend to work together, almost as if they are of one mind, so perfectly programmed to know the movements and intentions of each other that it is quite unnerving. We have also observed the remarkable strength, agility and speed of these creatures. Nothing comes even close to possessing these attributes to the degree that these creatures exhibit. Further to their physical abilities, we have also noted numerous supernatural aspects, including telekinesis and mental projection. The United Nations Consolidated World Army Offensive against the main front of the Exmortis was declared a failure in the early hours of this morning. The Exmortis push into Western Europe was halted for all of 6 hours as UN forces launched the first of their planned "take the battle to them" assaults in an attempt to push the marauding demons back into Asia. It is estimated that a staggering 40% of the World Army was lost in the initial hours of the attack. However, some advances were made in pushing the front back over the Italian border. The UN's controversial decision to use their armament of nuclear-tipped ICBMs appeared to pay off at 3:30 am when numerous mushroom clouds were spotted on the horizon over the Swiss Alps. French and Russian biodivisions were immediately deployed to continue the push back. However, the first sign of failure came at 5:45 am when contact with ARD, Advanced Recon Divisions, indicated 100% casualties of the biodivisions. It took an hour before the front returned to the earlier eastern French line and the final order for retreat was given. A staggering overall loss of an estimated 89% of World Army forces is expected to be announced to the media once United Nations Council assembles for an emergency debriefing later today. It was the bloodiest battle in the history of mankind. It can also be considered to be the fastest and the worst loss ever endured. Scientists claim that they are unsure as to why our sky has started turning red. It is no coincidence that the staining of the sky commenced with the emergence of the Exmortis threat, but the scientific community can find no explanation for this strange phenomenon. We are currently working on the theory that the strange cloud formations which follow the main front of the Exmortis assault is somehow linked to the reddening of our skies. The evidence that supports this theory is that the red sky phenomenon seems more concentrated around the Exmortis front and its wake. Today, the new head of the United Nations, Faranga, announced the consolidation of the remaining armies of the world in a last-ditch attempt to halt the advancing Exmortis scourge. We believe that the last chance of survival humanity has is to put aside our petty differences and work together to combat the greatest threat we as a race will ever face. Evidence communicated to us from the remaining splinters of the scientific community in the US indicates to us that the creatures of the Exmortis are not indestructible. Physical harm can be brought upon these creatures to incapacitate them. The strength of the Exmortis comes from their insurmountable and seemingly endless numbers. We remain confident that a concise and concentrated strike against the main front of the Exmortis assault will halt their advance and allow us to push them back to the Asian nations.
I've tasted your soul. It is a beacon of light in a time of such darkness. Your presence suggests why I spent eternity in here. My name is Xavier. Pay reference to my word.
The shaft takes a turn to the right. Light streams into the crawl space through the vent. I can't seem to make it any further without a screwdriver. Fuck! That poor bastard had his eyes, arms, legs and heart ripped from him. Only the Exmortis are capable of such cruelty. And from the looks of the blood splatter on his chair, I assume this poor soul was strung up before being killed. There's a Sudoko puzzle sitting here on the table. 3 inner squares of the puzzle are highlighted. Now we reach the point in the game where we have to work out this Sudoko puzzle, or rather we have to work out far enough to get the middle 3 numbers so that we can find a 3-digit combination to unlock a padlock where we get the screwdriver to further the game. It's quite difficult to maintain the atmosphere, so permit me to break character somewhat for this section. The Sudoko puzzle here remains the same every single time. So if you have no interest in completing it, as I imagine few people will, the combination is 8, 3, 1, and that will be the same every single time you play it. That doesn't change. Sudoko puzzles are not something I'm particularly familiar with. I'm pretty good at math, but there's a certain amount of lateral logical thinking to solving this. And in hindsight, I probably should have just wrote down the answers and just put them all in quickly, rather than attempting to solve it whilst on the clock, as it were. As you can see, this will take me a few minutes to do. I'm not the strongest with them. I needed a bit more practice, but it's possibly the only part of Exmortis 2 that I'm not particularly fond of. I find it really breaks the immersion. It's probably a bit strange to talk about suspension of disbelief in a game where there are demons and supernatural entities and whatnot, but it's strange that someone would have a padlock with a combination, and the way to remind him is a Sudoko puzzle. It comes across as very video gamey, and obviously that's the purpose of this, is that it's trying to give you a little bit of a challenge, a little bit of a way to basically solve a puzzle, because Exmortis 2 isn't nearly as filled with puzzles as say the first one is. It's a lot more straightforward, and at the time, because this game would have come out in 2004, I believe there was an idea that a game has to contain something like that for it to be a game. It has to contain some kind of puzzle element, especially if it's a point and click adventure game. Of course, nowadays we have a lot more walking simulators than the like, and a big reason why Exmortis was so popular back in the day, and why it's still remembered relatively fondly, even though, you know, it's a flash game, it's a point and click. Some of the sound audio quality isn't the best it could have been. Free-to-play game back in the day, created by Ben Leffler. And so, you know, the technology wasn't quite there, and he probably didn't have the right equipment, so a lot of it isn't perfect. You can see sometimes with the background, you can see where it's been photoshopped or changed or doxed and whatnot. But what sells Exmortis, and why I'm such a big fan of it even after all these years, is just the atmosphere it creates, the sheer level of dread, especially reading through the diaries, this sense of apocalyptic hopelessness. And it would be silly of me to compare it to, say, Junji Ito's work, just because I'm currently going through a massive Junji Ito binge. Although saying that, if you are a big fan of this kind of, not existential horror, more, I believe the YouTuber Super Eyepatch Wolf called it inescapable horror, just this very bleak, very grim depiction, and saying that Silent Hill 2 in particular builds this same kind of unnerving dread to it, then definitely check out Junji Ito. But that's what makes Exmortis great. It's not the gameplay, because the gameplay is very basic. It's point and click adventure. It's not tacked on puzzles like this which really break the immersion, but just the sense of dread, the sense of hopelessness. In some ways, I think it's a bit of a shame that Ben Leffler wasn't able to create a game like Exmortis in more contemporary times. Nowadays we have a lot more walking simulator games, and what's defined as a game has changed quite drastically. It doesn't necessarily have to have a fail state, and a lot more emphasis is placed on the experience, on telling a story, whereas in the past that wasn't the case. I know a famous quote from Doom is, a story in a game is like porn, you expect it to be there, but it's not really necessary. That's not really the case anymore, and I feel like a game like Exmortis could have thrived in a more modern environment, especially since at the time of making this commentary, Exmortis 3 is not available anywhere that I can find. After the success of the first two Exmortis games and a few other side projects that he did, which I'll put a link in the hyperlink description down below, he went on to work for Exmortis 3 for quite a couple of years, I believe 3 or 4, and for his hard work, naturally, he wanted a little bit of compensation. So whilst every game up until that point he had released for free, Exmortis 3, although there was a demo for it, to get the full experience you needed to pay. And at the time, a lot of the people who were playing these sorts of games were kids who wanted a bit of a scare, so didn't have the money, and naturally, although they really enjoyed the first two games, perhaps weren't able to pay up. And in the court of public opinions, it made a lot of people unhappy. I know Exmortis 3 wasn't the most well received. I think part of that was probably because there was a price tag attached to it, and although a lot of effort went in, a lot of the technology pretty much remained the same from the first two. In more modern times, if he had released Exmortis 3 for free, and instead of charging for it, had perhaps started up some kind of like a Patreon or a Kickstarter or whatever, to get people to give him money if they like his work, as opposed to putting it behind a paywall, he probably would have been a lot more successful and garnered a lot of positivity from the community, which would have helped him out. After Exmortis 3 came out, he pretty much disappeared, and I don't know much about him. I don't know where he went, and it's a shame because he was capable of really good games there, and it would have been nice to see what 10 years down the line of focusing he was able to create, but sadly, as far as I'm aware, he doesn't make games anymore. Anyways, thank you for letting me go on that little bit of a rant. We're just about finishing up the Sudoku, so let's get back into character, shall we? (831). That looks pretty good to me. Not bad for an amateur, if I do say so myself. June 14th. It is done. God may not exist, and if he does, he's turned his back on my family, left us to an unimaginable fate. But I have cheated him. I did what had to be done to save my family from the same fate as the Colbys, and no doubt the Jacksons. The Exmortis may have claimed everyone around us, but I have spared my family the terror and terrible pain. I had been up most of the night, after making love to Anna for the last time. I left her sleeping in bed, so I could stand watch at the window, eyeing the approaching clouds. I knew they were coming for us. The distant sound of panicked air horns filled the night sky. It wasn't going to be long before they would be on our front doorstep. I decided then and there, the first sign of light, I would take my beautiful wife and our 3 children's life before they could. At 5:30 a.m, I kissed Anna for the final time. She awoke with a smile, but when she spied the gun in my hand, she stood bolt upright. But she was too late. I moved to the kid's bedroom only to find Daniel still asleep. I ran my fingers through his soft brown hair before shooting him once in the head. I moved towards the end of the room before I spotted Claire standing in the window, in some kind of trance, watching the clouds. I took aim, and before she could even react, I sprayed her blood on her old bedroom wall. Zoe, my little Zoe. It pained me the most to do this to her. I found her cowered in the corner of the bathroom, crying her little blue eyes out. I swung open the door, and when she saw me, she lit up like a Christmas tree. She cried and flung her arms around my legs, asking what was happening. She had thought the Exmortis had finally come for her. I told her not to worry, and that she should wash her hands. When she turned back for the sink, that is when I shot her. She slumped to the ground, but she was still breathing. No, I couldn't let her suffer. I dragged her to the bathtub and shot her again and again. My poor little Zoe let out her last breath and her last tear. I slumped into the corner and wept. I have lost everything, and though I did what was necessary, I am surely damned for eternity. 4 innocents, dead by my gun. I moved Zoe and Claire in with their brother and covered them with a sheet. I couldn't bear to see them like that anymore. I sit here now in the kitchen, writing my last entry. This is it. I hear air horns blazing all around me now. The clouds are right on top of my house. I can hear screams echoing across the land. Not all of them are human. I never dreamed the end would come like this. I can see a car moving over a hill in the distance. My God, it's Joe. He's still alive. But it makes no difference. Something has just battered open my front door. I can hear them coming for me. I have no time left. I've just barricaded the kitchen door. It should buy me enough time to take the final step. I'm sorry, Joe. If you read this and happen to survive this day, please understand what I have done. The rest of this diary sits in the cupboard next to my bed. I hope you can forgive me, for it is now my time to embrace oblivion. I love you. Anna, Zoe, Daniel, and Claire. Vetus Hostillus Exmortis, Xavier Rehayem, 1902. My dear reader, many years have passed since I cast my thoughts to the memories of my demons, for my story is one of captive torment. Years of tortured labour to stay one step ahead of the constant threat of lunacy. Indeed, I pain to recall the torment endured for those years around the end of my young daughter Gwen's life, for she was lost to my blade, and it pains me deeply however as much as my hand was forced by them, my captors. Yes, the demons that haunted my house. The possession of my poor daughter, they turned her into a puppet, held her soul for ransom, in return for the translation of the text titled The Book of Exmortis. Of course I did as they wanted, however I fear that such work will come with dire consequences, if not for I, then certainly for mankind. When they returned her to me for a mere minute, only to take her away from me again, I realized that Gwen was gone, and never to return. I suppose in a way, I wasn't killing my daughter. I was killing the demons that took hold of her. I digress. My purpose for penning this text is not to alleviate the pained memories I carry with me, nor is it to gain unwarranted sympathy for my eternal plight. I ultimately utilize this medium to serve a dire warning to whatever years of humanity we as a species have left on this earth. An unspeakable evil resides in the hills not half a day's trek from my current abode here in Lockhair Fields. I have witnessed firsthand the cruelty of the entities I have come to know as the Exmortis. I can only further elaborate on the threat these beings pose upon humanity. Once I have summarized the nature of the beast, to understand the history of one's enemy is to be one step closer to salvation. The following is a summation of the Book of Exmortis. The Ancient Dominion War. In a time before life and light, corporeal beings did roam our lands, ruling over those smaller and less powerful sentients. These fiends of great power and might were many in numbers, but their greed to exert their dominion over others saw these lands bathed in the permanent blood-stained hue of war. Many ancients and lesser sentients were slaughtered in the resulting conflicts. Eventually, only 3 ruling ancients remained. The merciless Kfafta. Lord Kfafta held rule over a vast army of sentients, having single-handedly delivered the death blow to the majority of opposing ancients. His power was only exceeded by his hunger for total control and the effective purging of his enemies. The manipulator Vlay. While Lord Vlay's armies were by no means comparable in size to his opponents, they fought with a great ferocity and unwavering loyalty to his rule. It was the belief that he had a gift of influence over others that made it almost impossible to remove oneself from his service. He was considered the general's general. the tactician Azrael. Lord Azrael's armies were slightly smaller than those of Crafter's, and he was in no manner as influential as his brother Vlay. However, he was created as a ruler and a master tactician. If there was a way of turning the tide of victory against an aggressor, Azrael would carry it out effectively. The age-old war continued to rage on between the three remaining ancients, but the tide had turned in a final assault on Vlay's royal armies. Azrael, being the master tactician, had realised that the inevitable victory here, leading to the eventual confrontation with Crafter's forces, would result in defeat. Crafter's armies were numerous, and the only way for him to be defeated would be to work with Vlay against the greater enemy. In the wake of the destruction of Vlay's last bastion, Azrael had his brother captured, but instead of disposing him, he asked of him to lead their consolidated armies against the mighty forces of Crafter. Vlay had no choice but to agree, and lead Azrael's armies he did. It was the bloodiest battle to have ever been fought, and eventually Lord Vlay plunged his sword deep into the heart of Crafter. His life force stolen from him, Crafter crumbled and perished. Vlay had won complete control of the Earth Realm for Azrael to rule over. However, Lord Azrael had learnt from the history of ancients before him, and had decided to have Vlay destroyed before he could carry out the inevitable treacherous challenge to his rule. But what he did not count on was the extent of Vlay's influence on his armies. Azrael was soon deposed from his throne, and Vlay destroyed his corporeal form to assume control of his new consolidated dominion. Emergence of the Exmortis. Over many millennia, Lord Vlay ruled with an iron fist over all sentience. None would dare oppose his word, but in time his power on influence diminished, and a faction of lesser beings had his corporeal form destroyed, and his ethereal form banished to roam the lands forever as an earth-bound entity. Vlay diminished greatly in power, and was doomed to be unable to physically affect the world around him. However, he still had many followers to which he spiritually combined his life force when they too were stripped of their corporeal form. The Legion of Exmortis was born, and over the course of millions of years did it grow stronger, and work towards regaining the power of influence and totalitarian control of the Earth Realm. The Soul Bearers. Over the millions of years following Vlay's removal, the Earth took on a different look. The grounds turned green and lush with vegetation, while the sky was no longer stained with the blood of the ancient Dominion War. Strange beasts appeared on the lands and in the oceans, but the most significant of these creatures to emerge was man, for it seemed that these fragile beings possessed a gift. It was a gift that would grant them with a great power over the roaming malevolent demons and spirits of the ancient world. Man was born with a soul. Over many thousands of years, man destroyed the remaining evil Earth Realm sentience and entities. The scores of entities that had survived the Earth's metamorphosis had been destroyed forever. But unbeknownst to man, the powerful Ex Mortis lay dormant, surviving through their strength in numbers and reveling in the wisdom of their ancient leader, Lord Vlay. The Hand of Death. The blood of 5 innocent soul-bearers, marked with the symbols of the ancient Vlay, has the power to bridge the gap between the ethereal plane of existence and the earth as dominated by man and beast today. The influenced man shall become the hand, his soul the pathway and the source of strength for the demonic horde. The Book of Exmortis, in its original Aramaic form, went on to detail the further ritualistic orientation of the link between our world and the spiritual plane described quite frequently as the ancient land. I dare not put pen to paper again for the reproduction of the incantation of the hand for fear of my tainted soul. Following the tragedy that was my daughter Gwen, I felt compelled to continue my work looking for an answer to this evil. I spent day after day translating more and more ancient occult text pertaining to the dark arts which surround these entities. For years, I worked through each book of the archaic collection until I came across a precious find. Imagine my surprise when I located a text which could lead to the downfall of the dominion of the Exmortis. It was a text that I dared not translate whilst in the captivity of that isolated abode for fear of exposing to them my knowledge of this script, titled Vetus Adversarius, translated The Ancient Adversary. Over time, I worked to shake their attention. When I finally broke free, I fled the wilderness and returned to civilization, eventually relocating here to a beautiful Lockhair Fields homestead. It was here that I began to unravel the work I was forced to complete for the demonic Exmortis. I had managed to escape with the one text that could aid in my pursuit to right the wrong I had been an integral part of. Within the pages of the Vetus Adversarius, I had discovered a great many things. Most important of all is that the source of the demon's power was also their weakness. The man who will become the hand. His soul is the path between the spirit world and our own. Sever the hand, and the link is broken. From Vetus Adversarius, the door was unlocked by the blood of 5, protected by the fiends once dead now alive, circled by blood from the dark ancient rite. The mortal man makes the ultimate sacrifice. A weapon of fire takes a fifth for its own, creating a path to where the dark spirits roam. His soul will pass through the ethereal gate. Beyond it lies his God-given fate. A dagger of faith shall sever the hand, mortally pierced by the soul-bearing man. The light of the path cut off from the land, reducing the scourge to fire, ash, and sand. For many years, I have studied this passage from every possible angle. I have noted that the blood of 5 is once again prominent in creating the link between our physical world and the spirit realm. But what of this mortal man's ultimate sacrifice? What of this dagger that the passage speaks of, and who is this man that this script references? I cannot answer these questions, but I am certain all will become clear when the time is right. All I can do is make available the tools required for our Xavier to rid the land of this plague when it inevitably comes to be. I know now that this is my purpose in what little years of life I have remaining. Now more than ever, I believe that within our faith, we will find the answer. The circle of life, portal to the spirit realm by an act of ultimate sacrifice, involving the use of the weapon of fire. Nice foundation work. I'm glad I forked out the dollars that my old house done properly. Not that it matters much now. Oh shit. The Exmortis are getting closer. I don't have much time. I better get back into the house and find out what I'm meant to be doing. There's a plank of wood here. This must have been what was barring my entry earlier. The toilet is splattered with a small amount of blood. This must have been where he shot Zoe. It's definitely evidence of a recent kill. Poor souls. With this dagger sever the link and the demon horde will fall. Within your faith lies the answer.
Come, quickly, for we don't have much time.
Sacrifice is written in blood on the wall. What is this sacrifice I have to make? I don't have much time to figure it out. There's a wooden chair in the middle of a ceremonial circle, but what is this sacrifice? Dry blood. Sacrificial circle. A weapon of fire. This gun has taken 4 innocent lives. Oh fuck. I have to take my own life if this gun's open the portal. I have to. To be some kind of beacon floating in the distance. These boys need to be powered up. This should be simple enough. If we start from the strongest, work back, and then hit the final one twice, it should be powered up easily enough. There's more boys now, but the same concept remains the same. This place is amazing. I never could have imagined something like this would ever exist. We still have a job to do. Let's connect these boys and link the pathway. This is the doorway back to the Earth realms. So this is how the Exmortis are reincorporating into our world and flooding through. Fuck me, what a trip. I don't know where I am, but I've somehow regained my physical form. There's a dead body here with some bullets. I don't have many left. It'd be good to restock. I can hear them in the distance. sides. It must have been one hell of a slaughter. The tunnel ahead seems to stretch on forever into the darkness. Another tunnel. These systems go far. A set of cement rock steps leads upwards over the crest. I can feel a very faint breeze against my skin. There's a trace of light creeps over the crest here. I think I'm close to getting out of here, finally. Wait, there's a familiar entity. The one I spoke to at the church.
Hey, how good it is to see you again. Congratulations are definitely in order. You have accomplished something the combined forces of humanity could not. I must admit, when we last met in the church, I was unsure if you were the right person for the job. However, it seems my faith in you wasn't misplaced after all. Your actions have paved the way for a prosperous new age. Which reminds me, I must also remember to thank Xavier for his role in this. How is he, anyway? Still moaning about losing his little whore of a daughter? You soul bearers. So complicated, yet once again I find myself surprised in the ease at which your hide can be manipulated. Much easier than my former brethren within the Exmortis. Why the look of surprise? Surely you must have had some suspicions that I, Lord Blay, was the one who sent you upon this path. Calm now, child. My fellow Exmortis deposed me as their leader many eons ago. Wouldn't it be rather unwise to put myself in a position for the same inevitable treachery to take place? Only now do you realize I needed you to remove my enemies and clear the path for my return to rule over a world which has always been rightfully mine. And it certainly seems that you came through for me with flying colors. So, Mr. Hannay, for your role in this, I commend you. For your part in this, I applaud you. And for your help in this, I grant you a gift. A quick death.
Upon the wings of fire and devastation I return, reborn into a world that I once knew. Strange archaic powers, foreign and twisted, surge through me. How I came to be here as more than human, I remember not, but I promise this. I will have my revenge upon the ancient enemy Vlay, and my people will taste freedom once again. I find myself in the middle of a crater. My impact back to Earth must have been spectacular, but the force is so great that I can't climb out. I need to find a way out. With these new powers I have, I could probably pull that crane in the background, but I'm still not too certain of them yet. Let's use a hook and cable and see if we can get out. Staff has been skewed into the ground here. This imprint means what was. I remember the endless void, a crimson prison without bars, removed from my world and flung into limbo, condemned to roam forever alone. Off in the horizon I see the dark outline of another mountain line. I've transported myself to 1,000 different places in this hell and all are indistinguishable from each other. The red sky is blood, as it is everywhere, and another thick layer of cloud and heat haze forms what could be considered the base of this hell. Every now and then there are greater rocks, a monolith apex jutting through the cloud. Up ahead, I see one of the many summoning totems. There's nothing to do but to press onwards. See in all directions. It's been longer than I can remember. An arrangement of small cubes form a strange shape bobbing up and down with the winds. Power cube. I can feel an overwhelming presence of archaic power. Every layer of this hill was littered with lifeless rocks, hills and stones carved into the side. Too emanates with power, the cube of vengeance. Overwhelming sense of hatred in its presence. All three fires are lit. They must be connected to the cube somehow. The arrangement appears to look like the Vengeance cube unfolded. And this one, like the Hatred cube unfolded. What is this place? Let us try, finally. Power cube. A glowing red orb has materialized in front of me. It's ominous. I have materialized standing on a dark dungeon square. An ominous-looking creature stands before me, tethered to the stone. Who are you? Why am I here? What is this place? You're the ancient Azrael, but Vlay put you to the sword. Only an ancient can destroy another ancient. I am but merely human. Why would Vlay keep you alive? I am in this hell because I trust an ancient. Why should I trust you? It sounds too good to be true. What's the catch? Why do you need me? Why can't you confront Vlay yourself? Revenge will be mine. What must I do? What? Destroy you? Why? Surely there is some other way. Yes. You have my word. Okay. I am ready. Back to Broughton City. Doing that side quest is not necessary, but it does give you some power and health, and it gives us more of the backstory, and we're here for the story, so there's no reason not to do it. For now we want to continue looking around the ruins, and we'll go right first and look toward this silver blood-stained sedan. Now, as well as some items on his person, there will be a glove compartment with a map in it. This map is necessary for using a teleportation power, which, apart from one instance, we're not going to be using, just because you wouldn't be able to teleport to a new location without having it, but it's not something that really ever comes in handy. The rear of the destroyed industrial complex forms an adjacent street pokes through. This rope will come in handy later, so we're going to pick this up and continue searching through the ruins. There will be... Alright, by combining the map and the poker, we're going to get rope and, well, rope and poker, and that's going to come in handy later on. But continue to look here. A gold tooth doesn't provide us with anything useful, but it will give us an achievement. There's quite a few items in this area which don't actually have any story purposes, but collecting them gives us achievements, so... The lobby of this apartment block must have been the scene of hell on earth. There was blood and dead bodies everywhere. The floor that was once carpet is now a mess of garbage and gore. This post-it note is going to be very helpful for working out the puzzle we're about to encounter, and the medkit, might as well use it as soon as we have it. Our health wasn't at full because we did the background. A note addressed to a person named Jim. It reads, "If you're alive and you're reading this, I've moved the package to room 13. We're going to send these fuckers all back to hell. Tucker." Now there isn't much else in this room, so we can back out now and solve our first puzzle. Now go into your inventory and get the post-it note. Think of this like a graph. For each line is a different wire, so BO to G2 will show you how to connect them together, or if you're struggling with it, just follow what I do here. Doing it in any other way will result in an electrical shock when you try to put it in, and a loss of some health. This poor soul was impaled straight through the chest. A letter R is written on the wall. And it seems I'm not alone. Use the BA apartment key to get in. It's a window with a thick ash clouding. On the table there appears to be some paperwork. First thing we're going to do is take the lead pencil and use this to scribble on this sheet of paper. Doing so will give us a code. 2670. Micheal, it seems rather stupid of me to open this letter to you by asking how things are in Hobbs Junction. I've asked for regular updates from my unit commander on the Shadow Man's follower movement through your area, and so far, they appear to have left your area alone, so I trust that both you and Connie are safe. Life remains the same here in the ruins of Broughton City. Drake and I have taken up refuge in a Resistance safe house that overlooks what was once Key Street, the main arterial of the city. We have been tasked with providing the Resistance reports on any movements that the Shadow Man's followers make through this part of town. Thus far, I have only encountered scavengers, loyal neither to the Resistance nor to the Shadow's regime. But don't be fooled, my friend. If you were to cross paths with one of these scavengers, Micheal, I can only suggest that you put him or her down immediately without second thought. They are only concerned with their own survival, even if that means turning to murder and cannibalism. What has happened to the human race these past years? The darkness, born of the presence of the demon hordes of Exmortis, shrouds this godforsaken planet still. Casting its sickening shadow over the countryside, it grows darker still towards the epicenter of the Shadow Man's dominion. We that remain loyal to the Resistance pass what information we can by word of mouth, but every day that passes sees our number diminished. Hunted, tortured, and murdered, the Shadow Army grows strong even as we weaken. However, those of us who remain hold firm to our resolve. We will banish Flay and his pawning minions. The scheduled weekly arrival of the Resistance courier is upon me now. I will write as often as possible, my friend. Stay strong, and know that it is our soul that sets us apart from the enemy. Tucker. Micheal, I hope you and Connie are still doing fine. Johnson, my unit commander, made mention via wire that you were involved in a skirmish with some local Shadow Army goons. It's good to hear that you managed to escape without incident. The last thing that I want is for you or Connie to be killed, or worse yet, locked away and tortured like animals. Not much has changed here in Broughton. Drake and I are taking shifts in watching the debris-filled streets outside the window. When one of us runs recon, the other is out scouring through the destroyed Market City supermarket for any food that may help get us through the extended stay we are experiencing. I've been having a little bit of trouble lately with the local dog population. It seems they are getting just as desperate as we are. I was almost set upon by a pack of wild mutts just 5 days ago, but thankfully I was quick enough to act by firing my sidearm into the air and scaring them off. Next time I fear I will need to put a bullet or two into a few of them to stave off an attack. They're getting as smart as they are desperate. Before things start to become more dangerous around these parts, I decided to do a little bit of scouting around the area. It's amazing how much damage the Exmortis did to this city when they swept through here 6 years ago, killing everything in sight. Not much is left intact. Only a handful of buildings remain standing. So I've decided to push my search area a little further tomorrow to see if I can expand my knowledge of the area. You just never know when such knowledge will come in handy. When this shit hits the fan, I want to be on a beeline back to the relative safety of Resistance HQ. Be safe, my friend. Tucker. Micheal, we made an amazing discovery today. Whilst Drake ran recon from the apartment, I felt that it was time to brave the open city once more. I came across an old electronics warehouse in what was once the central business district of Broughton. Whilst nearly every item I found upon examination of the store was almost beyond repair, I managed to locate an unopened box in a back room. My expectations weren't high, but I soon realised that I had in my possession a box of solar panels in perfect condition. Knowing Drake's background as an electrical engineer before the Exmortis arrived, I decided to drag the parts back to our stronghold for him to assemble and put to good use somehow. And I tell you, that man is a genius. Drake managed to install the panels onto the roof of our building, as well as running wire down into the apartment and lobby. We now have the ability to charge our batteries, run hot water, and run simple circuits for a short amount of time each day. It may not sound like much, but such a simple luxury brought a lifetime of hope to us both. We spent the next shift working together, talking and laughing as if we weren't locked in an ongoing battle to fight for the future of our race. For the first time in years, we both remembered what it was like to feel happy. The simple things in life are often the best, my friend. Tucker. Dearest Micheal, Drake is dead, or so I assume. Considering the success of my scavenger hunt last week, my companion at this post took it upon himself to perform one of his own. I briefed him quickly on the areas of the district that I had searched in weeks past as he left at first daybreak, so I began my recon shift, watching from my vantage point as he disappeared around a pile of rubble to begin his search for more items of interest. 8 hours had passed before I grew concerned that I had not seen nor heard a single thing from my comrade. As you can imagine, I began to worry, especially with the day's light coming to an end and the ravenous packs of dogs becoming a more frequent occurrence after dark. I had to make the call. Do I complete a quick sweep of the area, risking my own life so close to dusk, or do I ride the night out at my post and search for him in the morning? At the end of the day, my importance to the Resistance as a dead man is far outweighed by my importance as a living one. Thus I chose to wait for morning. Come daybreak, I ventured out in search of Drake. Just when I was about to give up and return to my post, I came across a sight that made my heart sink and my stomach turn. At the stairway near the mouth of the subway system, a thick line of dark blood trailed, but to make matters worse, the security shutter was drawn on the subway entrance, blocking me from investigating. Whatever was dragged down those steps into the darkness, and I can only assume it was Drake, was now trapped down there. I have no way of getting through the shutter or even confirming if Drake is still alive somehow. I now have to live with my decision to not venture out yesterday evening to search for him. Maybe, just maybe, I could have saved him, but I can't think like that, can I? Either way, I am alone now, but still have a job to do. Tucker. Micheal, the nights grow restless. My solitude is taking its toll upon my patience. With every moment that passes, I grow weary of just sitting and watching the gale-force winds slicing their way through the debris-filled carnage of the street. I have wired my unit commander, asking for a replacement for Drake. However, he responded that it wasn't possible. Apparently the Resistance had taken on some heavy casualties in recent weeks, and he is of the opinion that without confirmation of Drake's demise, his hands are tied on the issue. Johnson also made mention that there have been reports of increased enemy movement on the road north into Broughton City. Apparently it was just too dangerous to send anyone else. Every man comes with important value to the Resistance now. So it appears that I have no choice but to sit here and stew in my own sense of duty and waning patience. Tucker. Micheal, I must apologize. I did not mean to not inquire in my last 2 letters on how you or Connie are holding up. My dismay in recent weeks at losing Drakes has clouded my better manners. I have some disturbing news from Broughton City, my friend. A few nights ago I was startled from my sleep by the distant sound of drums and chanting. Upon gazing out from my vantage point, I happened upon a faint orange glow permeating the horizon west of my position. I decided that this was a circumstance which would require closer investigation, but once again, I would have to travel by day, for the dangers at night are far too great. The next morning, it didn't take me long to locate the source of this disturbance. Beyond the crest of the outer suburbs of Broughton, I had discovered a base camp being established. A supply line was set up, as a significant portion of the camp consisted of supplies, food, and weaponry. I slinked my way a little closer to investigate, taking refuge in a half-collapsed garage. It was then that I discovered a cavalry of the Shadow Army gathering in a clearing separate from the main camp. From the looks of the markings on their vehicles, they were advanced recon scouts preparing a sweep of the city. And usually preceding scout sweeps, Shadow Marchers, the enforcers of Flay's law, perform search and destroy missions. My friend, I fear that my time here in Broughton City may be limited. Pray for me. Tucker. Micheal, I trust you have heard the news. Beyond the Broughton City limits, the Shadow Army amasses. The smallish camp I discovered a week ago has increased in size exponentially. It appears that Vlay has identified Broughton City as a likely haven for a main portion of the Resistance. I think it is fair to assume this city is about to be razed to the ground. Over the horizon, the sound of drums and chanting cut the night air like a finely tuned blade slices through the warm flesh. I've observed a few light advanced recon units, scouting their way through the streets below me. They search for ambush spots or any sign of Resistance presence. Thus far, I have managed to keep my position in this apartment complex a secret. However, the temptation to load my sniper rifle and take out a few of these traitors is almost overwhelming at times. But I continue to resist any such urge, as I once again remind myself that my responsibilities to the Resistance far outweigh what my inevitable resulting death would be. For the moment, though, I sit tight and wait for the order to come from Johnson to pull out and retreat. I may be rejoining you shortly, Micheal. It will be like the old days, fighting side by side once more. Tucker. Micheal, I have spoken to Johnson, my unit commander. It seems that the order for me to pull out may not come to fruition. In fact, I can probably expect the opposite. The Resistance leadership hierarchy has identified this large gathering of the Shadow Army in one area as an opportunity to deal a significant blow to the Shadow Man's efforts. I'm not sure exactly how they intend taking advantage of this gathering, but Johnson made a point of explaining to me how important it is that I stay where I am and avoid detection by enemy forces at all costs. As it is, I am already running a great risk in writing this to you, so I'm afraid this will need to be my final communique with you for now. Suffice to say, I hope all is still well in the old H-Day, my friend. Wish me luck with whatever mission I am about to embark on. I may not return from this one alive. Tucker. Dear Mr. Tucker, we regret to inform you that Mr. Micheal Dunlop lost his life carrying out his duty whilst bravely defending comrades under enemy fire. Please accept our deepest sympathy and condolences for your loss. Due to a backlog of communications, we have undelivered correspondence between you and the deceased. As a result, we have marked these items as returned to sender and have included them within the package before you. I trust these will find you well. With great regret, J.P. Nugent, Comms HQ. Tucker. Package en route to your assigned location. Acknowledge receipt of package upon arrival. Tag your exact location with a circled letter R for delivery purposes. Hide package. Arrange secondary site and advise primary location via wire. Johnson out. Johnson. Confirmation of arrival of the package. Payload primary location in maintenance room drywall. Secondary location prepped and confirmed. Recon operation resumed. Awaiting further orders. Tucker out. Tucker. Intel confirms enemy plans to use Broughton City as base for future attacks on our operations. Area holds great deal of strategic importance to the enemy, therefore the city must be destroyed. Relocate package to secondary site and prepare to initiate detonation sequence on my order. Johnson out. Tucker. Urgent intel confirms your position now compromised. Shadow March is en route to your immediate location. Initiate package detonation sequence and rendezvous with Alpha Squad. Match to be your contact at Broughton Marina for extraction. Request confirmation of status at earliest convenience. Johnson out. Johnson. Successful evac unlikely. Enemy has me pinned down in room 23. Defense perimeter breached. Remote charge ineffective due to timer malfunction. Cut off from package position at secondary site. I am unable to initiate the package detonation sequence. Advise Jim Lyle he will need to detonate package for me if planned extraction unsuccessful. Tucker out. Tucker. Gulliver's Lookout reporting massive detonation within Broughton city limits. Please advise status of the package. Johnson out. Rule of thumb, whenever you come across an item, if there's an achievement unlocked immediately afterwards, chances are it's not useful to your quest. I'm going to throw a fire extinguisher out the window to break it because kicking it down would be too easy. And now we're going to use the poker and rope we got earlier from scavenging the city to let ourselves down. From this point onwards we're on a time limit, so we want to move quickly, pick up everything in the room. Quite easy to miss the explosive pack, so make sure you pick it up from behind the box. There's 3 items in here. And this is the nuke that was mentioned in the notes. So initiate it, arm it, just to get an achievement. And from the moment you enter that room, you are on a time limit, not from when you look at the bomb. So get the rifle and the scope and cut this man down to get moving. Now we're going to go down the one junction we haven't been down yet. He's going to be shooting at us, so you want to move quickly to snipe him. If he hits you, he doesn't do too much damage, but it's best to try and avoid it. Continue down, and unfortunately for us there isn't actually anything useful down here. However, shooting that sniper and clicking on the yacht is an achievement, so if you're trying to go for all of them, you need to do this. Now there's nothing really of use in here, except again more achievements to collect. So if you can recall the code that we scribbled on the bit of paper, we can use that on the cash register here. Also, combining the batteries with the radio will again unlock another achievement. Again, lots of items. I don't know if in an original version of the game he intended more to happen with them, but for now they're literally just there to get some points. Go down to the train station where we weren't able to get past and use the explosive pack on it. Once that's been put on, add the wire and then take a step back to use the detonator. exposure. Pick up the jerry can on the floor. It's very easy to miss this one as well. And continue to the end of the door. Whoever or whatever did this, the mess it left behind paints a terrible picture. There's viscera everywhere. Tape to the top left-hand corner of the map is a key. You will need this. Trail of blood leads forward to the platform. There's a good chance that this was Drake. Now what's this? It can't be, that's my daughter Steph. Just what in God's name was that? Something knows I'm here, and this isn't Vlay's style. I should proceed with caution. Connect the jerry can to the generator here. And we're going to quickly go back because we actually forgot to pick up an item here, a rubber hose. Connect the rubber hose to the jerry can into the generator, and we're going to use this to siphon. So we're going to connect this jerry can with the hose to the right generator. Going to siphon some gas out, which is going to give us a full jerry can so we can fill up the left one. Now the puzzle here I do find seems to be randomized quite often when you play it, but it should be relatively self-explanatory what you have to do. Some of the lights will light up when there is a circle over them, some of them won't, and unfortunately you can't tell at a glance, you kind of just have to have a feel for it. It's a little bit of a trial and error thing, but this puzzle shouldn't be too difficult for you. You just keep moving them around and find which ones you want to put in. Unfortunately, beyond that, there isn't really much advice I can give. Now, as we access the computer terminal, there will be 6 options that we can turn on. Turning all of them on doesn't change anything from a gameplay perspective, at least as far as I'm aware it doesn't. But if you turn on only platform lightning, radio broadcast and the ticket security gate, you'll get an achievement. Trail of blood that started ends here. The mirror has cracked and broken immediately after I saw that thing in its reflection. It's clear that I'm being toyed with. Achievement for collecting all of the paper towel, for reasons best left to the developer. Now once the paper towel has been used up, use one of the pieces to clog up the sink and get the water running. This will cause the floor to flood and fill up one of the drain pipes where we can get a card key. There's also some shoes in here, again for an achievement. Now, do not open this door, look up and cut the string. If you fail to do this, you will be shot by a crossbow and die immediately. Coming in here is required to pick up the crowbar, which we'll again use later. Again, another trap. Make sure you disarm it or it will cause you problems later on. Using the fan belt here will allow you to adjust the tracks. All you need to do is pull the right lever back once. There's no puzzle here. Appear slightly. Use the crowbar to pry them open. Another badly decayed body litters the carnage. It looks as if there are human teeth marks embedded in them. One of them will have a coin purse. Pick it up for an achievement. Two more bodies lay slumped on the left. This level is labelled speed and braking. Get the train moving, but pay attention. There is a point that we'll have to use the emergency brake, so it's best to keep your mouse cursor over the emergency brake for when that happens. The big red button here is obviously the emergency brake. I have no reason to use it right now. Fortunately, there is an audio cue when you get close to when you need to brake it, which helps tip you off. It gives you quite a lot of time to react, so it's nothing too dear. The blockage of this tunnel always seems too neatly stacked to be a cave-in. Someone or something is blocking me in for a reason. And now, much like the Sudoko Puzzle in Exmortis 2, we reach a point which I think kind of messes with the immersion a little bit. As we go forward, there'll be 4 coloured key codes. And as you might guess, in order to continue, we have to click these in order. Essentially, we have to play Simon Says. And not only does it break the immersion, it doesn't make a huge amount of sense in-world. If there is someone here who is trying to keep you out, as we've seen with the traps, why would they not just simply use a key? Why would they use something that could quite easily be circumvented? And by the same token, something that if you make a mistake could quite easily cause your self-harm. You have 3 chances to get this right. If you get it wrong 3 times, you will be dropped into a pit of spikes and be killed instantly. It seems as if it's a puzzle for the sake of being a puzzle, but for lore building and for the world we're in, it's a very strange choice. It does speed up quite a bit, so it can get a little bit challenging, but just focus and you shouldn't have too much trouble here. That sick fucking freak. Platters with severed heads and limbs on the table. Must be some kind of cannibal.
What is this? How did you get in here? How are you doing this?
Who or what are you?
Nothing but you. I should be asking you the same question. You wield magic, you elude my traps. Therefore my dinner plate.
You butchered all these people for food?
I do what must be done to survive. I was once a family man, but Exmortis took everything from me. I forfeited all that remains of my humanity in order to endure.
You're an animal, and I'm here to put you down.
Wait, no, wait. You look like a man searching for something. Maybe I have information.
And how would a monster like you have information I need?
The people I encounter, they plead for their lives. They offer me information, knowledge, in return for their freedom. I learn many things.
What of the apparition of my daughter? The visions I've had?
I have nothing to do with it. You have probably attracted the attention of the Shadow Man's leader. A demon that can read your emotional pain like a book. Make you see things that cannot be. Your daughter is the key to unhinging you. He will taunt you with her memory until you confront the pain directly. It seems you have concerns far greater than mine right now. I find this...
And these people, what became of them?
What can I say? A man got to
The corpse at the table in the resistance uniform, what did he say?
You wish to know the location, do you? That information I do have. It seems this knowledge is what is keeping me alive right now. I see no reason why I should part with such information.
You want a reason? Those knives look exceptionally sharp.
You son of a bitch! Okay, I tell you. Army man was posted in Broughton City. I caught him up in a trap on the surface and dragged him down here kicking and screaming like a big dog. He spoke
Well, the city is gone now. What else did he say?
He said nothing else. It's hard to speak with tongue.
Why would you cut out his tongue?
This is part of the human body. This, how you say, just like...
I don't believe you. Tell me what I don't know before I stick another knife in you.
Okay. He may have mentioned Hobbs Junction was where he came from. I get feeling that is where your resistance be stationed. Now please, I tell you everything. You let me go now.
And how do I get to Hobbs Junction?
I'm not sure exactly.
So make me stab you again. Tell me the truth.
I no lie. I don't know. I never ventured south of the river. You have to believe.
I grow tired of your lying.
Fuck! You bastard! Okay. The door behind me. Texas, south over the river, into Kingston. From there, follow the
Okay,
signs.
I believe you.
Please, I've told you everything I know. Let me go. Nothing, nobody. I just want to live and be left alone. Please, have mercy.
After the things you've done, you're pathetic. These poor people deserved a better fate, but at least he can't kill again. Now I've dealt with the scavenger, I can start looking for this Hobbs Junction. Maybe I can find some answers. Exodus. I've seen this symbol before, back in Broughton City. It is associated with the Resistance. There's thick fog covering the area. Hopefully it can conceal my advance. On the tree to the left, move the branch over. You will find a code 7249. We will need this to access the door later on. Sentry guard paces the walkway above the track. He is resistant fire and I need information from them on the location of Vlay. So I want to find a way past them without hurting him. Not even the thick fog is enough to get past while he's patrolling. I'll need to make a diversion. Sandstone rock, perfectly weighted for throwing at distance. Use this to distract the guards so they can activate the alarm.
31 David Code 5, realize the number 610-988-988.
To access the base, we will need to find a way through this puzzle door. Earlier on we found a code 7249 on the tree. The general premise of this puzzle is every time you hit one of the spikes, the two adjacent spikes will also move. So we need to find a way for it to read 7249 from top to bottom. If you're struggling, then imagine top is 1, bottom is 4, and put in this, or hit this sequence rather, because it will always remain the same. 2, 3, 3, 3, 4, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. An old letterbox with my name on it, Hannay. That name means nothing now. What is this? How is this possible? This is my old house. The door at the end of the hallway won't move. Something, some reason, some purpose bids me here. 3 blood-stained curtains hang at the opposite end of this room. Each has a grid and 2 characters of the ancient written language. What could this mean? Take the Y symbol and rotate it twice before putting it into the bottom right corner. The O symbol, put 2 squares above that one. This puzzle remains the same every time. This symbol, I recognize it. It means offspring. Two medieval gibbets lie propped up against either side of the room. Inside are 2 ghastly looking ghouls. This puzzle should be pretty self-explanatory. Just rotate all of the blocks around until everything lines up. This symbol, it means lover.
Mr. Honey, how good it is to finally converse with the man so rich in tragic history. It is rare that a reader such as I would encounter an individual so layered with rage and mournful of those he lost to him. Indeed, the rich tapestry of exquisite pain runs deeply through you. And oddly enough, all centers in my lord's conquest of your land.
Just who the fuck are you?
I am a reader, and more importantly, a servant of the shadow. I was once human like you, but Lord Leo thought it fit to bestow upon me divine power to alter reality as I see fit, all in his mighty name.
Where am I?
Where do you think you are, Mr. Honey? Is this not your home, where it all started? The pain, the suffering. Before the Exmortis laid waste to your land, you had the perfect life, with a perfect family. And then one day, you returned to this, your bastion of false security, to find all that you loved. All that you cared for, everything that defined your very existence, was gone. Your daughter and your wife, torn to shreds on your front lawn. You had nothing left to live for.
Why have you brought me here?
No, Mr. Honey. It was not I that brought you here. It was you that brought me here. You constructed this reality yourself through your longing to return to the life you once had. All these years you have tried to bury your grief and infinite pain under a mountain of vengeful animosity towards my lord. But here, in your subconscious, you can conceal it no more. But Mr. Honey, your salvation may be at hand, and all that I ask of you is that you make a choice.
What could you possibly offer me?
I offer you the very thing you seek, the only possible light at the end of the very long and dark tunnel that you find yourself in right now. The one way to stop all the pain and return to a simple life fulfilled in the knowledge that you have something to live for once again.
Revenge?
No, Mr. Honey, don't be so petty. I offer something far greater than vengeance. I offer you the chance to have your family back.
What? My family?
Yes, your family. The very core of your soul. The source of any happiness that you have ever felt in your miserable existence. What I offer you is more valuable than any vengeful request or animosity you could show towards my master. However, even my powers are not without limits. Thus, my offer cannot be without limitations.
Go on. I'm listening.
I possess the strength to return only one loved one to you. So a choice must be made. Your daughter or your wife? On your left is a door that will take you into your daughter's bedroom, where she will be waiting for you, alive and well. And on your right is the entrance to the bedroom that you once shared with your wife, where she will also be waiting. It's as simple as that, Mr. Honey. Just make a choice. Your wife or your daughter.
Okay. I'm ready to choose. Now, choosing either one, the left to the daughter or the right to your wife, will end the game. It seems you trapped forever in this false purgatory, living out a false dream. Instead, take the iron pipe and plunge it through the reader. The demonic reader stares back at me through the mirror of those glowing orange eyes. His offer is tempting, but false. I've awakened in what appears to be a jail cell. Unfortunately, it seems that I'm confined here until I can find a way out. A glass of dirty water sits at the bench. It's not much, but it helps refresh me. Etched into the paint on the wall, upon the wings of fire the Redeemer will return. What on earth could that mean? There's some files on the floor. What are these? Consciousness. However, I would never be able to live with myself knowing that I had left a possible innocent behind to die. I know not your name, who you are, where you come from, or why you were captured attempting to enter our camp here at Hobbs Junction. The camp commanding officer claims that you are of the Shadow Army, an early recon scout used to communicate direction to the Dark Army that would surely follow. However, I remain to be convinced of any such allegations directed towards you. Earlier this morning, we were given immediate directions to retreat to a location that I naturally cannot disclose to someone such as yourself. I am sure you understand our suspicions surrounding your allegiances. The reason for our evacuation of the camp is that the Shadow Man had learned of our location somehow, and is about to have his army overrun Hobbs Junction. Many of our own early warning sentries died to relay this information to us. Certain elements of our command structure were immediately convinced that your presence here had something to do with the impending invasion. However, I and a few others in position of power managed to convince these elements that your life should be spared and you should remain confined in a holding cell and left to a fate unknown. The weight of such a decision burdens me with guilt, and so I find myself writing this note to you in the hope that you will never regain consciousness. However, if you do, I pray that I have adequately explained why you find yourself confined as such. I must now take my leave, as the sound of gunfire permeates the morning air. The Shadow Army has arrived, and our retreat must be swift before too many of us are lost. I bid you best of luck, and pray that the darkness sweeping this camp in the coming hours will grant you a quick and painless death. JC. Subject: John Doe, number 793. Status: vegetative incarceration. Threat assessment: subject to be kept under armed guard at all times. Capture report: subject fell victim to decoy access door on Southern Gasworks trap. Recovery of unconscious subject carried out by SFC Jackson and taken for immediate medical examination as per protocol. All possessions confiscated and placed in a holding store under designation LV-426. Nature: allegiance. At this stage unknown, however, it has been recommended that he be treated as a potential hostile due to subject's willful attempts to elude Southern Industrial Sentry Guard by triggering factory internal alarm. Subject's possessions, attire, and state of health is inconsistent with known enemy combatants. It is possible that he is unallied and poses little to no threat. Medical report. Initial examination indicates the subject to be in good health with no visible wounds or scars. The absence of such physical trauma is highly suspicious. I recommend ongoing monitoring under armed guard. For the past 3 days, subject John Doe 793 has remained unresponsive and in a catatonic state. It appears that he may have had an undesired reaction to the gas, which was supposed to have only rendered him unconscious. The subject's vitals are dangerously low, yet stable. Attempts to review the subject have been unsuccessful. Recommendations. In the unlikely event of John Doe 793 regaining consciousness, subject is to be moved from the medical unit to a holding cell and interrogated immediately. Through the bars of my cell I can see a room with a lot of very interesting items, but how do I gain access? There's no way out. Wait a minute. This poor bastard's been impaled and eviscerated. The Shadow Man's armies must have come through here not too long ago. Piles of bricks and dead body litter the place. Attention, Lieutenant Cole Lansdowne. For your eyes only. Proposed infiltration operation. Designation Operation Firestorm. At 0900, meeting between residing co-chain resulted in drafting of potential infiltration of the Shadow Citadel. TAC-3 aerial drones have enabled us to gain an understanding of the layout of the Shadowlands. Thus, the potential of a successful target termination is now far greater than ever before. TAC-3 have identified a gap in the Shadow Sentry line of sight approximately 56 miles southeast of Hobbs Junction between post designations N2 and designation N3. A combination of terrain formation and thick roadside growth has shielded what used to be Route 73 for an approximate 3.4 miles on approach to enemy territory. It is proposed that a small group of our best close-quarter fighters breach the line undetected under the cover of darkness. Upon successful insertion, the team is to make their way to Falls Church as indicated on the provided map. Locally gathered information leads us to believe that within Falls Church lies an entrance to a concealed system of tunnels that lead directly into the immediate area of the Shadow Citadel. Further information also indicates that another Shadow Sentry post exists within visual distance of the southeastern flank of the Citadel. Caution is advised. Once the Shadow Citadel has been infiltrated, the primary target should be located in a fortified central position. Command advises the likelihood of success will be maximized by exercising the nuclear option. To aid in the infiltration of the Shadow Citadel, Command has recommended a direct assault on the sentry lines to the west of the primary target. This assault is to be considered as a diversion tactic. Timing is critical to the successful termination of the target. Lieutenant Cole Lansdowne, stop. Scout 324 reports enemy movement towards Hub Junction for what appears to be an immediate assault upon your location. Enemy forces far outnumber the capabilities of even HQ's fortified defences. Recommend immediate evacuation of Hub Junction. SC-423 out. SFC Jackson. Operation Firestorm approved for immediate action. Echo Charlie 23 confirmed. Prep Thompson team for immediate deployment on the double. Remaining Hobbs Junction forces to be immediately evacuated to secondary location Lima 2. Lieutenant Cole Lansdowne out. Pick up the rifle on the floor, otherwise we'll have a difficult time taking out some sentries later, and we'll have to make a run for it. Resistant fire and army fatigue lies broken in the pool of his own blood. The army has given no respite for this place. There are severed heads to the right. Click on them for an achievement. Face trapped in eternal scheme, choking on the pike. This has to end. Flayed and beaten beyond recognition, I can barely make out what parts of him are meant to be human. Fix it and edit it. Edit this bit out. Execution. A lone bell tower. Right, from up here we can snipe two scouts on the other side. There is travel time, although the bullet doesn't fall down. It can be quite difficult to aim, so take your time and wait for them to stand still before taking them out. Take the sledgehammer and cut the wire on the left-hand side. The rope will swing for a time. Feel free to explore the area while you wait for it to stop. You need to carry on. Pick up the crisp blade and use the sledgehammer to break down the wall. Click on the cross to gain an achievement. Now we break through and continue onwards. Had we not sniped the two soldiers earlier, we would be getting constantly attacked at this point. The puzzle here is randomized. Before we start on the puzzle, pick up the C4 pack on the right hand side. The body of what appears to be a member of the Resistance lays torn apart. The rotting corpse of a would-be intruder sits against the blood-stained walls. Now, the basic premise of this puzzle is that the number at the top is how many of them we have done right. It will be randomized each time. So, always leave at least one differing. Doing this method, you will always be able to get it correct before all four come out. Now that the gate is open, I can continue infiltrating the compound. Now, we can use the C4 we collected earlier to blow up the gate. However, using our powers will net an achievement. Pick up the gun here and get ready to use it by pressing G. The gun will sway once we have it out, so the easiest thing to do is to quick draw and shoot. Stone and metallic tablet sits to my right. Place the crisp blade in, and this will open the path. massive arced iron door leads forward. Large golden goat. I can feel Vlay's presence just beyond. Sitting on his throne, eyes glowing with the restless and relentless fires within, sits Vlay. Struggling, fighting and sacrifice, I have clawed my way to this moment.
For longer than I can remember, the element of surprise has been lost upon me. That is until this very moment, Mr. Honey. For yours is a face I never expected to see again. I take it your inevitable death wasn't a suitable conclusion to our successful partnership.
You'll find I'm full of surprises.
Indeed you are, Soulbearer. And I can tell you have emerged a different man now. No longer are you the hesitant hero, nor are you the manipulated pawn in a larger game. You have intent, confidence, and clarity. You draw strength from your pain, and you have learned the value of a greater purpose.
Purpose? Let's talk about purpose, shall we?
Mr. Honey, that menacing glint in your eye betrays you. It appears that vengeance is your only intention here today. How disappointing. How human.
I am here with no other purpose, demon.
Petulant fool! You dare challenge me? You are nothing more than an insignificant distraction. I am your lord. I am your god. I am forever. You know as well as anyone else that only another ancient can bring harm to me. Your efforts will be without reward, and your death will be exquisite.
Nothing is forever, Vlay.
You poor misguided child. There is only one way this will end. I almost pity you. In fact, Mr. Honey, I'm going to allow you the first blow. Consider it a reward for the role you have played in cementing my rule over this world.
This fight with Vlay, you can use either the destruction power or telekinesis. The latter does more damage but is harder to hit. As such, it's usually a lot better just to use telekinesis to be consistent.
Once again, Mr. Honey, you have surprised me. I take it that my brother Azrael met with death to gift you with the ancient powers. Though I am afraid that I have been using them a lot longer than you, child.
Okay, so the basic premise is use your telekinesis to take out the rocks. Use it to take out the two shield barriers and keep hitting him. That's why it's a lot easier to use telekinesis, because if you fail to hit the rocks, you will take damage. In fact, if you get into a good enough rhythm, you can keep hitting him before he can even have a chance to hit you. So yes, you do damage and you do finish the fight quicker if you use the destruction power. But in all honesty, the sliver is so small and you need to act so quickly that it's far better to take a little bit longer to use an attack where you are guaranteed to hit than risk it.
Wait, Mr. Honey, wait. Think about what is at stake here. Think of the power you can have. If you were to put me to the sword, the power of the ancients would be lost to you. You will be nothing but just another mere mortal. You need me, Mr. Honey.
Your death for these powers I consider a fair trade.
Foolish man! You are a stain. A shallow-minded, pathetic worm unable to see the bigger picture. That is all you are, child.
So continue attacking him as you were before. There's not anything to hit other than him. However, if we take too long, he will hit us with a fireball himself, which is why I highly recommend telekinesis. Just keep hitting him over and over until eventually he goes through the wall.